Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Cloud Scalability and Resilience, Lessons from Covid-19. My name is Anna Flack. I'm the Global Marketing Director at BSO, a high-growth cloud infrastructure and network connectivity provider serving data-intensive businesses around the globe. Today, we want to reflect on the impact that the global pandemic has had on businesses and their IT infrastructure around the world. One thing is clear, the digital transformation has been underway way before the pandemic. The move to the cloud was ongoing, but the pandemic certainly gave a greater sense of urgency and forced entire businesses online overnight. Trends that would usually take decades to unfold took place in a matter of months. The pandemic has shown that being digital really is no option anymore. It's not a boardroom agenda item, but an imperative that, if not addressed, represents lost revenues today. But it hasn't only brought challenges. It also brought opportunities for those that were prepared or adapted quickly with the right partner at their side. Companies succeeded by employing technical agility and deep customer understanding. And that's what we want to discuss today, how to mitigate uncertainty with cloud computing. According to a recent report by Accenture, who surveyed 750 senior business and IT professionals at large enterprises across 17 countries, 80% of business executives now look to cloud as a means of mitigating business uncertainty and lowering risk. In addition, 87% view cloud as a critical component of their strategy for achieving their corporate sustainability goals. And one often overlooked factor here is cloud connectivity. Businesses choose public cloud providers such as Oracle for their infrastructure, but how does the CTO or the head of digital or that business then access the data in the cloud? And that's when BSO comes in. As one of the creators of private dedicated cloud interconnections, we are integrated with all major public cloud providers and have over 40 cloud on-ramps globally. One close partner of ours is Oracle, and we are very excited to be a Fast Connect partner of Oracle. And BSO provide businesses with a stable, secure, and dedicated connection from their on-premise network to OCI, the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Today, we're joined by Shaunak Thakkar. To introduce him, he's a Principal Program Manager at Oracle Cloud. Shaunak joined the telecommunications industry with Time Warner Telecom in 2006. Since then, he's worked at Vitella, which is today NTT, TW Telecom, which is now Lumen, and BT, before he completed his MBA from INSEAD and then joined Amazon's retail business. In 2020, Shaunak decided to return to his telecom roots by joining Oracle, where he manages partner relationships across EMEA and India for Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Connectivity product, which is Fast Connect. And we have Stephen Wilcox, a true industry veteran. He started his career managing R&D at UNET before moving as operations manager to Opal Telecom, where he built their IP network to support what would later become TalkTalk. In 2002, he founded Telecomplete, a multi-million pounds turnover company. In 2007, he then joined Google and undertook roles in peering, network design, acquisition, and architecture standards. Stephen founded IXReach, a leading European wholesale network and colocation provider acquired by BSO last year, and that's when Stephen became Chief Product Officer at BSO. Welcome to both of you today. Our first topic, which is the key infrastructure challenges that IT leaders encountered during the pandemic.
Yeah, so I think, as you rightfully mentioned at the beginning, that the playbooks that had been defined up to this point pretty much went out of the window overnight, right? We had to focus on making sure that employees were able to work from home. Those that were coming into the offices because they had to could do so in a safe manner. And also making sure that we were able to accurately report and adapt to the changing situation, not just in one place, because the pandemic hit globally. We needed to make sure that whatever we did was also in compliance with the local rules and regulations being set out by local governments. So Oracle as an organization itself had already started its own virtualization journey. We're one of the largest consumers of Oracle Cloud ourselves, Oracle as an enterprise. And essentially, that's what enabled us to make sure that not only were we setting us as an organization up for that, the changes that were being demanded of the current times, but we were also enabling our customers to do the same, right? So to give you an idea, one of the key initiatives or one of the key goals that we've been working on as a company for a long time is an automated close of our monthly financial books, right? And this March, even with the entire finance team working remotely, we shortened that goal by 20%, right? And essentially, that came about as a result of our finance teams now using the same Oracle Cloud ERP and EPM applications as our customers were. As an organization, when you start consuming your own cloud services, it also provides valuable feedback, instant feedback in terms of what your customers can and should be expecting in their own businesses. So it helps you stay ahead of the curve in terms of planning out that infrastructure accordingly, thinking about your product and feature roadmap more critically, just because you have that instant feedback loop from your own organization.
That's great. Thank you so much for that insight. Stephen, what was the journey like at BSO?
I think it's impacted all areas of the business. It's definitely made us have to change plans and made us have to change our strategy everywhere, whether it's in sales, where we're usually out there in the field doing face-to-face meetings, attending conferences, and that's all had to shift to online, looking at how we do the marketing, doing discussions with clients remotely, video conferencing, traditional telephone calling, stuff that we maybe weren't doing as much before, but that's our only option now for something like sales. Operations, of course, is more physical out in the field. And with a big global network like ours, that was a potential problem that we had to look at early on. Fortunately, we've got a lot of offices in a lot of countries, and we have, through that, a lot of engineering and support that comes with it, not only in-house, but also through the contractors, partners that we use. And we had to take a look at that and make sure that we could continue to support the network and the business, even without being able to travel. Some bits out of our control, things like logistics, getting things from suppliers, like we can't control that. And there was some impact there, and we had to look at how to mitigate for that. Silly things like not being physically able to enter a data center because they have a lockdown because somebody went in 2 days earlier and tested for COVID. So now nobody's allowed in. And these are sort of like some of the challenges that they had on that side of the business. In terms of what it's done for the company, we were already operating as a modern company. We already use various cloud-based tools. We're using Gmail, we're using Zoom, Slack, these kind of tools. But it meant that although we'd introduced them, we had to double down and increase our discipline and processes around them to make sure that teams that are no longer sitting together could still function as teams by making sure they have good communication, transparency, and sharing of things. It impacted what we see with our customers. There's a lot of examples, but what people said they were going to do in Q1, Q2, they suddenly changed course, and we saw a shift in what people were doing, what they were buying, how they were looking at their consolidation sometimes because nobody knows what's going to happen next. But that also presented some opportunities. I was involved in one conversation where an existing customer, they were already looking at us. Well, they already used us for some services, but they were looking to migrate more stuff over. And basically what had happened with them is that they had their offices in Paris. They had their like a data room within their office, like many small to medium companies do. And because in Paris, people weren't allowed to travel around the city, they suddenly found they couldn't get to it. And they got really nervous that they were going to have some sort of downtime or data issue. And hence they sort of came to us and said, right, can we move this? We need to accelerate what we were talking to you about because we're concerned. So it's presented some opportunities as well.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I know we've delivered projects in really sort of remote locations despite the limitations of lockdown. But then, yeah, as you say, I mean, in Paris, restrictions were even very, very limited in the city, and you couldn't just access data centers and so forth. Agree with you on the point from an employee perspective. I think, at BSO, we were quite lucky in the sense that we're already using the flexible cloud-based systems. So it was almost more of a cultural impact, right? So how do we make sure that teamwork, communication, and mental health don't suffer? So here we've put an engagement plan and activities into practice to improve that.
And I think even for organizations like ourselves, where we were pretty modern in the way in which we operated already. The scale of having to do that for your pretty much your entire employee base globally, just required that sort of sense of, right, we need to think about this differently, because, you may have had a handful of employees working from home before, a large proportion of them going into the offices, but now all of a sudden you've got close to 90% of your workforce working from home, right? So how do you scale up to make sure that work continues uninterrupted was a pretty eye-opening experience for our IT teams, for sure.
Absolutely, especially with a company of your size, I can imagine it was even more challenging.
Yep.
Great. Let's go over to the next topic. So that's scalability, resilience, and agility. What are the best practices to consider when migrating mission-critical workloads to the cloud in order to achieve those benefits? How specifically on the topics of scalability, resilience, and agility would you recommend companies to act?
Well, I can start with that. Very much so, right? I mean, if we focus on the agility piece of it, right? So I think there was a study that was done by McKinsey that showed that close to 90% of 92% of large enterprise customers had already started to think about their virtualization, or were already pretty far down along the lines of the digital transformation in their businesses. But as you rightfully mentioned when we kicked off, that some of those plans, which may have been spread over months and quarters, now all of a sudden had to be transformed into, or had condensed into a matter of weeks, right? You literally have, even today, you have organizations that if they don't change their business model, change their way of working fast, they're going to be out of business pretty soon, right? So I think transformation was something that was already paramount in the minds of a lot of IT stakeholders at large organizations. I think now it's become indispensable. So having, you're always going to be weighed down by your legacy in terms of IT in some regards, right? But I think the companies that were able to adapt faster are the ones that are are reaping the benefits of sort of navigating through this crisis right now, right? You almost want to make sure that your IT infrastructure is never driving the business. It should always be the other way around. And I don't think that reality has been more stark at any point in history, as it is today, right? You always want your your tech stack, your IT, your back office to be driving the business and never weighing it down. So being agile, not being weighed down by some of those legacy restrictions, if you will, is crucial on the agility piece, right? Same thing with scalability, right? I think if you think about, and I can speak from one of our own customers' experiences, Zoom, right? The platform that we're using today for our webinar. Zoom was doing very well pre-pandemic for sure, but post-pandemic, all of a sudden they found themselves in a position to support up to 300 million users at any given point in time, right? So you think about scalability, you want to make sure that, granted that this is a one-off, and hopefully we never find ourselves in a situation like this, but when you think about scalability, those are the magnitude of numbers that we're talking about, right? I know for a fact that companies that pivoted from bricks and mortar to e-commerce were all of a sudden flooded. Pretty much all the large grocery stores here in the UK didn't have slots available to provide their customers in terms of delivery for those systems. So, if you're not thinking about scalability, if you're not working with the right partners who can deliver that scalability for you, you're talking about lost revenues, you're talking about lost opportunities, right? And then the last one being resiliency, right? I think that one's an interesting one because, again, up till now, if you look at the standard playbook, when you talk about resiliency, you always have the standard, hey, we've got our main site, right? And we're planning contingencies around, okay, if something were to happen to that site, what's the backup plan, right? How do we achieve business continuity? How do we achieve disaster recovery and ensure a highly available solution if something were to happen to our primary site? Well, guess what? This pandemic is global, right? So not only do you have to think about your primary and secondary sites, you also have to think about a backup for your backup, right? So, and in situations like this, you cannot afford to be hamstrung with scenarios that we've been discussing, right? I don't have access to my data center. I can't travel because of the lockdown. So again, those businesses that are moving to the cloud, moving to the virtual environments, taking as much of this hands-off as possible are the ones that are going to be able to navigate the pandemic successfully, and not just navigate the pandemic, also set themselves up for a much more robust operating model in the future as well.
I agree with all of that, and I think the key words here that we used in the question: scalability, resilience, and agility. To Shaunak's point, it all comes down to choosing the right partners and suppliers, because for the medium and large type of businesses that we're thinking about when we're working with Oracle, the type of customers that we have, it's about them being able to do things when there's a shock to their business. Well, one shock is that they suddenly can't get access to something, or this issue with the backup, can't get to the backup. And the shock is that the business needs suddenly change. One business, their requirements drop off. Another business, it goes through the roof, like the example Shaunak just gave. And how, and he also mentioned geography, which is another key thing. Things might shift around. This pandemic's affected the world, and it's affected the world in different ways. And you might be seeing things shifting between regions from how you operate your business. And to me, that all comes down to the way that you do anything when you want to scale a business is if you want to buy more of something, how do you do that? I mentioned on the previous question, we had issues with logistics, but we planned for it. But for our customers that are consuming things like network services from us, we offer the fact that we are a global network. We're in every continent. So if their needs suddenly shift and they're working with us in Europe and North America, and suddenly they need to support Asia, we can do that. They don't have to kind of find an unknown new supplier, so they can do that with us. And same, if their needs suddenly skyrocket and without any physical access to something, they need to double, triple, whatever it is, or turn something new up. We have that ability because the size of our network is designed for that. I think that's ultimately the answer to much of this in the question. I mean, yes, you need to look at your own business practices and how to scale internally, but ultimately when you're delivering to customers and you're using cloud or network infrastructure to do it, make sure you have the right partners to do that have scale, redundancy, and they will help you with that. They'll give you the scale, they'll give you resiliency, and they'll give you agility if you've got the right partner.
Great. And yeah, Shaunak, you mentioned that hopefully nothing similar will come up soon, but given the fast-moving world that we live in, right, these increases and decreases in demand and uncertainty are almost, a constant factor. So let's talk about the companies where that migration to the cloud hasn't been that successful yet. So I mentioned a report by Accenture earlier, which was actually that piece of research was done very recently in autumn of this year. And they quoted that nearly 2/3 of the companies they interviewed haven't fully achieved their expected outcomes when it comes to cloud, despite the pressures of COVID-19. So why do you think that is? And what's needed to turn this around to make the migration a full success?
So a few thoughts there, right? I think that as with everything, the business and the tech teams within the business need to be speaking closely with each other, making sure that their goals are aligned, right? Too often in situations like this, you have situations where the cart's leading the horse. That can't happen, right? There needs to be an alignment for the vision of the business, and then the tech needs to enable that or drive that. Very rarely is it successful if it's done the other way around, right? You can't have the tech weighing down or dictating what the business can and can't do. It should always be the other way around. So that close alignment between business and tech stakeholders within an organization becomes crucial, right? The other thing that I would encourage business and tech leaders to think about is that cloud technology is still pretty nascent, right? You think about it in the grand scheme of things, it's been around for 7-8 years now, even with the ones that got started early. That's very, very new. None of the large cloud operators are even close to saying that they're done, right? They've kind of achieved everything that they wanted to achieve when it comes to the features that they want to deploy, the services that they want to provide. This is this is something that's changing by the day. And if you think about Oracle, we've only started delivering cloud services in all earnesty for the last 3.5, 4 years, right? So we're very much in the, I don't want to say infancy, but early stages of the maturity of the cloud offering. So this technology is only going to get better, right? So if it's not delivering across your expectations today, it doesn't mean to say that come 5-10 years time, it won't, right? Or maybe even sooner. And then the last thing that I would also encourage everyone to think about is when you're thinking about what you want to get out of the cloud or your cloud migration, your cloud adoption, it's very important to look at your existing infrastructure and have a true idea of what's working, what's not working, and what are the challenges that you're looking to solve or improve upon once you move to that cloud journey, right? You can't just do it as a sense of, oh, it's the thing to do these days, that's why I'm going to do it. Understanding your setup that exists today, understanding the pros and cons of what it is able to do and not able to do, and then identifying what you want that cloud experience to deliver is going to lend a lot of clarity in terms of not only what success looks like for your organization, but also in terms of which partners you're going to select to go there, right? So again, thinking those things through, thinking them through in advance, thinking them through in collaboration with your cloud partners, with your connectivity partners, and then having those realistic goals set up, having a 2, 5, 10-year plan is what's going to help a lot of companies feel that they're getting the maximum or deriving the maximum value from their cloud migration, right? I think a lot of times these steps are taken too prematurely. They're not done with the ideal recommended setups, and that's what's kind of leads to, that wasn't quite what we were expecting kind of feeling from customers, right?
I was thinking about this a little bit. I mean, I think unless a company is a technology company and potentially at the cutting edge of technology, there might be a few reasons for it. So companies that have already brought staff on board that have used this technology before or done cloud stuff before will tend to be pushing for it and see the benefits. But for other companies, whether they're small, medium, or large, if this hasn't been the nature of what they've done and they haven't had people in the organization at a senior level that have done it, then I think a lot of companies, they see the trend, and like many different things over the years, there's sort of like, you need to tick the box and say, we have a plan to go to cloud, whether it's to make customers feel better or whether it's to make investors feel better. So you sort of have this tick box of like, we have a plan, but they haven't necessarily executed it. And I think there might be different reasons why they haven't executed on it. One might be, if it's not broken, why fix it? Which is the kind of like, there's just lack of time. A lot of technical pieces of businesses are already busy, and it's it's in the to-do list. We'll get around to it next week, kind of thing. Maybe some companies are scared of change. This comes down to if they don't have people who can reassure them in-house that they've done this before or understand it. So companies maybe don't want to do something that might disrupt their business or cause them any blips in their operating. And with more sophisticated companies as well, I think that things like security, safety of the data sovereignty, and all these kind of questions they sit big with C-level and legal people, and the answers to how they can achieve that when they start outsourcing pieces of their business and they don't control the physical infrastructure, they're not even 100% sure where it's physically held. I think these come into play. they're all things that can be addressed, and they're all things that can be managed properly if they put their setup correctly. But these are the kind of questions that we get when we're talking with customers that have big security concerns. How do we know that you're not holding our data somewhere else, or how do we know you're not going to lose our data or look at our data? And that's education, both from ourselves and also, again, from them having the people in-house that can do it. That's my take.
Thank you, Stephen. Data privacy and security, a huge topic on the B2B and the consumer side of things. So let's touch quickly upon our topic 3 before we go to the questions from the audience. So this is about the lessons the pandemic taught us about the migration to the cloud and its relationship to the digital transformation generally. Would you say that cloud empowers digital transformation, and how exactly is it critical to a company's digital transformation strategy?
Yeah, so the short answer is yes, right? Cloud definitely empowers virtualization, digital transformation. Again, I think in terms of the key lessons learned is, I think the topic of the webinar summarizes them really nicely, right? Particularly agility being the key one. Business disruptions, we've never seen it at a magnitude as we are today. But again, the agility that comes with having the right technology in place, having cloud adoption in place, having virtualization in place to be able to pivot your business model is crucial. We've already underscored the importance of that in the few months that we've seen the situation that we're all in today. So in terms of the key lessons learned, I think everyone's going to come out of this pretty much thinking along the lines of, right, what do we want the future state of our organizations to look like? How do we make sure that we're able to innovate, drive value, and deliver on what it is that we're providing to our customers and survive as a business in case there is a disruption of the scale that which we've seen today. So I think that we've answered the question that, cloud adoption is here to stay, digital transformation is here to stay, virtualization is here to stay. The companies that embrace it and are proactive about moving in that directions are the ones that are going to be able to navigate not just the current situation, but upcoming situations more effectively as well, right? And again, when you do that, as Steve said, they may not be a tech business, they may not be on the cutting edge of technology, but you don't have to be, right? You have partners that can support you in helping you realize your vision. And if you're an organization that has that legacy fear of, it's something that's beyond our comprehension, so we don't want to touch it, or that feeling of we'll get to it tomorrow, well, sometimes there may not be tomorrow, right? Because we've seen the situation that we're in today pretty much developed overnight and exploded even more suddenly. And if you're not ready to transform, to change your business by leveraging products like cloud computing, it's going to be hard to do it when you're in the eye of the storm, right?
Yeah, I think, in answering the question in relation to the pandemic, I think the sort of, how does it empower it? Well, it protects you from local threats or global threats, and the pandemic has been both. It's been a global issue, but it's also affected everybody locally with very complicated local restrictions and the issues with that. You can argue that the solutions that they give you, cost savings, directly from not having to buy this stuff yourself or to host the stuff yourself. So you're getting OPEX savings, CAPEX savings. You can also look at it as a saving on personnel in some cases, where you're essentially outsourcing the management of the migration or the management of the ongoing systems that you're now leasing as a service from your provider. With that, you get the increased reliability. You're no longer dealing with an in-office server room or something like that. You're dealing now with companies who are truly global. And in the case of cloud operators like Oracle and ourselves, we're in so many places, but we're also so large that we enable these people to trust that they can rely upon us. If they need to expand the services they have, if they need more hardware bringing online, whatever it is, they can do it. They don't need to deal with the problems of logistics. They don't need to deal with purchasing with suppliers in the traditional sense. And they don't need to deal with hardware issues, whether it's server hardware issues or hard drive failures, the typical things there. They can eliminate all of those things. And in an environment where you may not physically be able to deal with that effectively yourself, whether your personnel can't get to do it, or whether you can't get hold of a replacement hard drive, whatever it might be, this is where cloud really comes into its own and really enables businesses to be confident that they're secure and that they've got everything running for their long-term interests.
Thank you, Steve. And I think there's a question that's come in for you, which is very much about the cloud connectivity. Why is cloud connectivity often overlooked when migrating workloads to the cloud? As a veteran of the sector, what's your view?
Why is it overlooked? I don't know if it is overlooked. I think it's maybe underestimated. So you're specifically asking, how is cloud connectivity overlooked? I think when people think of cloud, the first thing they think of is turning their server off in their office and spinning up a VM, but it's quite a bit more sophisticated than that. So I think they maybe underestimate it when they first do it, and they think, I'm just going to spin up a couple servers and it'll imagine. They don't necessarily think about everything that comes with it. Cloud offerings themselves have lots of different services, the connectivity operators like ourselves. And it might be that they haven't thought it through in terms of everything they need, or it might be that they're trying to save costs and just not put the extra pieces on because they see it as a cost-saving exercise. So maybe they're misunderstanding it all. Some of them. Others, I don't know. I mean, we deal with a range of customers. Some of the larger ones that we have, so operators of, say, travel websites, e-commerce websites that use us, and they very much know their business, and they very much know that where the connectivity is coming. They rely upon the connectivity. They have complicated global infrastructure that sits in the cloud to serve these huge websites that they have, and they're maybe using different cloud operators for different pieces of the business, and then they've got network operators interconnecting it. And to them, the network connectivity is absolutely critical. If that goes down for any reason, they're losing thousands by the second. So they're very much architecting that in a way that they're confident will work. Did that answer the question?
I think that's good. Yeah, great. Let's finish off with one for you, Shaunak, on the unique value proposition for Oracle Cloud. Actually, you said cloud is still in its infancy. What's the value prop of Oracle Cloud compared to other providers?
Oracle has the legacy of the enterprise, right? We've got years and years of experience in delivering those on-premise database, Exadata, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, CRM, ERM type solutions. We've got a lot of legacy right there, right? And we acknowledge that we were late to the cloud game, and I think that when we decided to enter the cloud game, that was the exact question that we had to answer: is what's our value proposition going to be? And it was, the answer was looking at us in the face, right? We had to make sure that we architected our cloud so that it was a true enterprise cloud. All those applications, all those databases, Exadata solutions that were sitting on the customer's on-prem data center for all those years had to seamlessly work when moved to the Oracle Cloud, and not just work seamlessly, but work better than they did in the customer's on-prem data center. So as Stephen said, to help the customer realize the efficiency of the cloud, help them realize the cost savings that would come through migrating an on-prem data center to the cloud, it just had to work better, right? So our key value proposition is that you as a large enterprise have probably invested a lot in Oracle licenses, database applications. A lot of your back office is probably already running on Oracle, and that stuff, including all the customizations and third-party tweaks that may have been done to those off-the-shelf products, will work in a seamless manner when migrated to the Oracle Cloud, right? So we needed to ensure that customers who were migrating these applications to the cloud had a comparable or even a better experience than what they had in their on-prem data center. So again, I think that what's quickly shaking out of the cloud scene as we see it today is that the big public cloud providers bring different pieces of value to the cloud puzzle. Not all customers are using a single cloud provider, right? There's studies out there that show 70 to 75% of customers are actually hedging their bets when it comes to cloud adoption and actually splitting their application across more than one public cloud provider to sort of get the best of all worlds, right? And that's where partners like BSO also come into the picture, because it's not only providing the connectivity to the cloud, but helping customers navigate through these convoluted scenarios of splitting applications across two cloud providers. How do you manage that? That's where partnerships like this become crucial.
Some of these larger companies in particular, they choose specific partners to work with, like Oracle or whoever, based upon either what they can provide, the type of services they provide, or where they can provide them, because you're dealing, in global businesses with very, very specific needs. I think Shaunak has described what Oracle does, but we certainly see customers where they're connecting multiple things together, and we know they've got this piece of the business in this cloud, another piece here, or they're using this cloud for the front end because they are good in this market, and they've got this other cloud in this region because it's a different market again. So yeah, we definitely see that sort of multi-cloud thing. If I can add a little bit to your answer, although the question wasn't aimed at me, I think with BSO as well, I mean, we can do generic if people just want generic stuff, but a lot of people can do generic, so that's not that exciting. It wouldn't make a good webinar to talk about very generic VMs and connectivity. I think when you come into the more sophisticated clients and the corporates, you have to tailor things for their needs. For ourselves, they need high levels of assurance before they'll work with us. Banks, financial institutions, they're not going to work with anybody. They need to know that you've got the certain things in place. They can rely on your securities there. Sometimes the customers need high availability solutions, which the majority of people connecting to cloud don't seem to ask for, but these more sophisticated ones do. 5 nines uptime, or in the case of us, we have these low latency routes around the world. So sometimes they're very specific on, like, I don't just want to take anything generic. I need you to get me from here to here, and it can't cross the ocean here, and it has to be here, and you must give me an SLA that it won't be, any more than this many milliseconds at any time. So I think when you deal with us or with Oracle, it's these aspects of what we do that appeal to the more sophisticated customers, at least.
I will have to stop you here. Thanks, Stephen, as we've come to the end of the webinar and need to wrap up. But I think it's been an extremely insightful discussion. Thank you so much. To summarize, I think we all agree that the COVID-19 pandemic has turned cloud adoption into an absolute imperative. Being cloud first is mandatory in surviving in that new time of remote work, e-commerce, uncertainty. And here, scalability, resilience, and agility are key when mitigating risk and can really help deliver any digital transformation goals. We've also touched upon the fact that some companies have not yet succeeded with their cloud or multi-cloud infrastructure and strategy, which can be very much due to the fact that business and technology aren't aligned, and also that it's not just a tick box exercise, right? That companies really have to have a long-term mindset and keep the business objective at the center, and that there's always an option to leverage the skills and experience of a strategic partner for consultancy, managed services, and so forth. And with regards to connectivity, we've learned that it is maybe underestimated at times, but actually it's a key differentiator when looking at having a consistent, stable access, as opposed to an internet-based connection, and as Steve just mentioned, also low latency. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined us today. I would like to thank our friend and partner Shaunak from Oracle Cloud Infrastructure and Stephen, BSO's Chief Product Officer, for their thought-provoking insights on the subject. We've already got a few comments and questions on hello@bso.co, which you can see on the screen, but please don't hesitate to follow up via that email address. Thank you very much.